Because there's not a great deal to section 3.3, we're going to do sections 3.3 and 3.4. Section 3.3 has a couple of key concepts. The first of which is how to write something in the proper order. So if you look at problem number 24, it says instructions are to write in descending order. And what that means is the highest power is to be written first. That highest power happens to be x cubed here. So if we rewrite this thing in the proper order, what we would write down is the 3x cubed. Then we'd write down plus 5x squared. And then we would write down plus 4. So what we need to remember in descending order, and this is the way things are typically written in algebra, the variable with the highest power is written first, then the next, and then the next. Let's now take a look at problem number 36. This is the example of the only other thing that you'll be doing in section 3.3, which is evaluating an expression. And they ask you to do that if x is equal to 2 and x is equal to minus 2. So I've split it apart. We're going to do it for both variables. What you do, of course, is then you put in the value for x. In this case, it's 2 squared, minus 5 times 2 plus 1. Then, because there's a power, you have to take and square the 2. That becomes 4 times 2 plus 1. Now you multiply across, so you get 8 minus 10 plus 1. 8 negative 10 makes it a negative 2 plus 1, and that then becomes negative 1. What happens if you substitute in negative 2? So we have 2 times negative 2 squared minus 5 times negative 2 plus 1. When we square it, it becomes 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 gives us a positive 4 minus 5 times a negative 2 plus 1. Now we get 8, but negative 5 times a negative 2 gives us a positive 10 plus 1. That's 18 plus 1, and that equals 19. So you have one or two problems of that type. But now what I'd like for you to do is turn over to page 195. This is exercise 3.4. And what we're doing is combining terms. In number 8 here, what we're doing is we're going to combine the polynomial, or the expression 4d squared minus 8d plus 7 and 5d squared minus 6d minus 9. All that really means is we're taking this quantity 4d squared minus 8d plus 7, and we're adding it, sorry about that, we're adding it to 5d squared minus 6d minus 9. Because we're just adding it, all we have to do now is remove the parentheses. 4d squared minus 8d plus 7 plus 5d squared minus 6d minus 9. And then we combine like terms. We have a 4d squared plus a 5d squared. Then we have a negative 8d and a negative 6d. Then we have a plus 7 and a negative 9. Just have to make sure that we recopy all of ours and group them together as they belong. When we combine those, 4d squared and positive 5d squared gives me 9d squared. A negative 8d, another negative 6d. When you combine those like terms, they're all negative, so that becomes negative 14d. And then a positive 7 and a negative 9, the difference of that is 2, and it's negative because the 9 is greater, negative 9 is greater than positive 7. All right, looking at 16, we have the same sort of structure. So we just remove the parentheses. 5b cubed minus 8b plus 2b squared plus 3b squared minus 7b cubed plus 5b. Now those dirty dogs, what they did is they did not write these in the proper order, because you'll notice in their second expression there, 3b squared minus 7b cubed is written in the wrong order. Even the first one, it's written in the wrong order because you have 8b ahead of the 2b squared. So when we're combining terms, we have to be very careful. We've got this 5b cubed, and clear over here is the negative 7b cubed. Those two are to go together first, so you would have 5b cubed minus 7b cubed. Next, we want to take a look at, in descending order, the plus 2b squared and the plus 3b squared. These happen to be sitting right next to each other. So that's nice. Plus 2b squared plus 3b squared. And finally, the last two terms are the negative 8b and the positive 5. That should be a b. Sorry about that. Let's see if we can erase that and make that a b. All right, so negative 8b, positive 5b. Now when we do that, now we're combining like terms. Our first two like terms are right here, and that's positive 5b cubed but a negative 7b cubed. The difference of that is negative 2b cubed. The next couple are both positive, positive 2b squared, positive 3b squared. So we just bring those together. We've got 5 total positives, b squared. And then the last two, there's one that's negative, negative 8, one that's positive, positive 5. That's these two right here. We have to find the difference, and the difference is 3, and the larger value, absolute value, was the negative 8. So it's going to be negative 3b. All right, we've got one more problem here, and then I've got a couple more I want to take a look at. What we have here is it says you want to subtract 3x squared minus 2x plus 4 from 5x squared minus 8x minus 2. But, so it says subtract from, that means that really when you rewrite this, you write 5x squared minus 8x minus 2. There's that quantity. And then from that, you are going to subtract the quantity 3x squared minus 2x plus 4. Now, when we do that, we can just rewrite the first part, 5x squared minus 8x minus 2. But since we're going through the second expression, the 3x squared minus 2x plus 4, we have to take and multiply minus 1 times each one of those. So minus times 3x squared becomes negative 3x squared. Then minus a negative 2x makes that positive 2x. Then minus times a positive 4 makes that a negative 4. Now, where are our like terms? Well, our first two like terms are right here and right here. So when we write those, we will write 5x squared minus 3x squared. Our next two terms are the negative 8x and the positive 2x right there. So we take the negative 8x positive 2x. And then the final two are our numbers, our constants, negative 2 and negative 4, written negative 2, sorry about that. Let's try that again. Negative 2, negative 4. When we combine those, 5x squared, negative 3x squared, the difference is 2. It's a positive 2x squared. We have a negative 8x and a positive 2x. Now the greater value is negative. The difference is 6, negative 6x. And finally, we have 2 negatives, 4 more negatives. That's a total of negative 6. So that's how you do that. When it comes to subtraction, and they give you that kind of format, as they do in problems 25 through 40, what you want to do is you want to make sure you rewrite it so it's in that format. Now what we want to do is go ahead and take a look at doing a couple more problems and we're finished. But I want to make sure that we take a look at some that require an additional step or two. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll up and erase what we've got up here. And we're going to take a look at problems 44 and 54. Problem number 44 has two parts to it. In problem number 44, what they're saying is you want to subtract 4x squared minus 5x minus 3 from the sum of x squared minus 3x minus 7 and 2x squared minus 2x plus 9. So what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite this. We're going to take our x squared minus 3x minus 7. And to that, since it said sum, we're going to add 2x squared minus 2x minus 9. And then from that combination, we're going to subtract 4x squared minus 5x minus 3. Now, you have two options. The first option is you can combine those two terms, or I'm sorry, those two expressions, the x squared minus 3x minus 7 plus the 2x squared minus 2x minus 9. Once you get that sum, then you can subtract a third. Or you can just go through the whole thing and combine them all at one time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the parentheses now. In the first and the second, we just recopy them. X squared minus 3x minus 7 plus 2x squared minus 2x minus 9. But in the third, because we are subtracting through, that negative sign makes this a negative 4x squared. Negative times a negative makes that a positive 5x. And a negative times a negative makes that a positive 3. This is the part where you have to be the most careful, is when you're going through by the negative sign, all the signs inside change. If 4x squared is assumed to be positive, then it becomes negative. Negative 5x becomes a positive, and a negative 3 becomes a positive. Now what I can do is I can combine all of my like terms. In this case, I have an x squared, I have a 2x squared, and I have a negative 4x squared. If I write them all at the same time, I'll get x squared plus 2x squared negative 4x squared. The like terms next in descending order would be the minus 3x, the negative 2x, and the positive 5x. So I rewrite that. Negative 3x, negative 2x, positive 5x. And my last three are my constants. Negative 7, negative 9, positive 3. negative 7, positive, or I'm sorry, that's a negative 9, negative 9, positive 3. Combining these first three, x squared plus 2x squared gives me 3x squared, but now I have a negative 4x squared. Positive 3x squared, negative 4 gives me a negative x squared. In my next set, I have a negative 3x, a negative 2x. That gives me a total of negative 5x. If I balance that off with a positive 5x, that gives me 0. I really don't even have to write that down. So I'm going to leave that blank and go with my constants. Negative 7 and negative 9 gives me 16 total negatives. Negative 16, positive 3 gives me a negative 13. So that's number 44. You can do it, as I said, one of two ways. You can combine the first two and then subtract the third, or you can do it the way I just demonstrated. And if you have any questions, of course, we can always talk that over. Now let's take a look at number 54. It says in 54, what you're supposed to do is add these using the vertical method. So, in using the vertical method, what we're going to do is we're going to set it up vertically like this. 5x squared plus 2x minus 4. And then the next one we're going to put just below it. X squared minus 2x minus 3. And then the last one is 2x squared minus 4x minus 3. That's doing it the vertical way. Now, oftentimes when we add things, we add them from right to left. So that's the way I think I'll do it this time. I have negative 4. I have another negative 3 below that. That makes negative 7. I have another negative 3. All I have is a bunch of negatives, so that's negative 10. And the second one, what I have is a positive 2x. Balance that off with a negative 2x, I now have 0. And my third one then, of course, is negative 4x. So I end up with a negative 4x. Now, for the x squared terms, 5x squared plus another x squared makes 6x squared plus 2 more x squared. That makes it 8x squared minus 4x minus 10. I think I want to take a look at one more, and that is subtract using the vertical method. Number 60. We want to subtract 13x squared plus 6x from negative 11x squared minus 3. So taking a look at number 60, if I have negative 11x squared minus 3, and I'm going to subtract that, what I'm going to subtract from that is a negative 13x squared plus 6x. Now, what I've discovered, of course, is, hey, look at this. I don't have these things lined up properly because in my second term, I have a 6x. In my first term, I have a negative 3. So what I have to do is I have to move that negative 3 over to here so that everything lines up. Now when I do that, what happens is I have now negative 11x squared minus 3 here. But when I go through with the negative sign, all of a sudden this becomes a positive 13x squared and a negative 6x. Now what I've done is I have changed the signs, so now what I can do is just combine them vertically. It's changing a subtraction problem to an addition problem, basically. The negative 3, there's nothing below it, so it just becomes negative 3. Negative 6x just remains the same, negative 6x. And vertically, I have negative 11x squared, so I have 11 negatives, but I have 13 positives. Therefore, when I combine those two, I get 2x squared. I don't really recommend that as an approach. I think it's too confusing. I think if you do it horizontally, you'll be a lot better off.